can let and then people will trickle in really throughout the whole time. So just keep an eye on that bar and see if anybody's sharing stuff in the chat.
Can you put the PDF back in the chat? Because I don't have it on this computer.
Absolutely. I will put the PDF back in the chat. And I will also share the link to the thing for the end. There's the Google form for the end. And then also one more link. Always good to hem before. And then that link is to the page if people want to contribute, which we'll also share at the end. Okay, you caught that? All right, let's welcome everybody in. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon, or evening, or morning, or middle of the night, given that there have been people from all over the world who have been joining us, which is so wonderful. Welcome, everyone. We love when you have your camera on to see your face. Totally up to you if you're snacking, taking a walk, playing with your dog, no matter what you're doing at the moment. We're so glad you're here. We would love for you to introduce yourself, share where you're calling in from in the chat. We love seeing where everybody is coming in from. Welcome, welcome. Hello. As more and more people. Paul, I hope you're feeling better. I hope I hope the COVID in your house is no more. Welcome, Tucson and Bloomington and Rybrook. Welcome, everybody. We're just introducing ourselves in the chat, sharing where we're calling in from. Yes, hello, Mariana. I hope it is beautiful in Sao Paulo. I don't know what time it is, but you're always here with such a beautiful smile. And 5 in the evening. Great. That is a lovely time to do some learning together. I'm so grateful that all of you are here. My name is Aliyah Light. I'm the founder of the Light Lab. I'm grateful for you to join us in the third of our Shma learning series with Rabbi Kimelman. As some of you might know, I took Rabbi Kimelman's liturgy course my very first semester at Brandeis, and it transformed the love that I already had for prayer. I loved it because it could bring people together and I liked the melodies. And then your class opened my eyes and my mind to the deep what kind of word am I trying to say? Intricacies. Why is that such a hard word today? The intricacies and the poetry of the liturgy. And I'm so glad that we are now going to be taking a look at the third paragraph in the Shma. My brother Nathan Light is here helping with tech today. So if you have any questions, you can direct message him. Nathan is going to put a PDF of our handout for today into the chat. But as always, I will also be sharing it on my screen. So now, without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Rabbi Kimelman. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Eliana. What a pleasure to be with all you together. This is our third session on the Shma. The first session dealt with the paragraph V'ahavta, the second with the second Parsha Vaya im Shemoah, and now we're in the third Parasha Vayomer. By putting these three biblical paragraphs together, we create a midrash. Midrash is the recontextualization of biblical material. That which is not juxtaposed in the Tanakh gets juxtaposed in midrash, creating a new flow of ideas. So the question we've been asking, among the many questions of intricate detail, is the connection between the three parshiot. The first one, the key word is V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha. V'ahavta does not say you shall love, but V'ahavta, which probably means you shall come to love. And we express the paragraph as either an expression of love or an effort to come to it. So all the symbols and the acts in the first paragraph could be expressions of love for God, or there could be a methodology of coming to love the Lord your God. So the opening line, is either an opening line or the result of how would one come to it. The second paragraph, we focused on Vaya'im Shemoah, arguing that the theme is not reward and punishment. Rather, the theme is, how does God provide largesse to the people of Israel on the land of Israel, without that largesse leading them astray, the basis of which is rain. And the last paragraph is, Laman yirbu yimevechem v'venei v'nechem al ha'adama asher nishba Adonai Elohechem l'te'lem kimei hashamayim v'aretz. So the goal is to keep Israel on the land, loyal to the one God, by tying progeny, children, and body to God. Progeny, which is taught, body, which is bound by tefillin, progeny, children, and body, to make them loyal to the land of Israel. Now we come to the third paragraph, which is Vayomer. This is a strange paragraph to find in the Shma. The other two come from the book of Deuteronomy, and the overlap of language and thematics automatically puts them together. So the question is, why is Vayomer, which comes from the book of Bamidbar, not from the book of Devarim, the final of the three Parshiot? And how is it connected? That's our question. Let's see if we can answer it by looking at the paragraph itself, hearing the allusions, and then we will come to conclusions. So the paragraph begins, this is now the book of Numbers, chapter 15, as a third parasha in the Shma, and it starts off, Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor. God said to Moses the following, Daber el bnei Yisrael, v'amart alehem vasu lehem tzitzit. Speak to the children of Israel, or the people of Israel, say unto them, vasu lehem tzitzit, let them make tzitzit. I'm not going to translate the word, we'll get there later. Where will they place the tzitzit? Al kanfei vigdehem l'doratam, on the corners of their garments for all generations. V'nanu al tzitzit, and they will give al tzitzit, hakanaf, the corner, a petil techelet. I'm not going to translate petil techelet, but it's normally understood as some type of dark blue thread. Verse 4, or line 4 here, Vayat lechem tzitzit, and it will be for you. Now here the word is extraordinarily difficult to translate. Most Sidurim say, Vayat lechem tzitzit, it will be for you for tzitzit. The problem with that translation is, it's already said that. It's repetitive. So a common way of resolving the problem is that word tzitzit comes from the uses it has in the Song of Songs, Metzitz ben acharakim, that he peeks through the lattices. Therefore, the word tzitzit would mean vayam lachem letzitzit. It will be for you for gazing, something to look at. That's why the next verse says, Uri'item oto. If it's for gazing, you shall look at it. Now the question is, what is it? What does it refer to? We'll get to that. Uzchartem, by looking at it, you'll recall all the mitzvot of God and do what? Vasitem otam. So the recall, we have recall plus doing. Then it says, Lo taturu acharei lavavchem v'acharei inechem. Do not be led astray by your lave, your heart, then by your eyes, asher atem zonim achareim, that you are normally led astray after. What will be the result? Laman tizkeru, you'll bear in mind. And what will you bear in mind? In order vasitim et kol mitzvotai, vayitim, to do all my mitzvot, and the result will be vayitim kedoshim le'elokechem, you will be holy to your God. And we conclude with line 8, Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am the Lord your God, Asher Hotzeiti etchem mi'eretz Mitzrayim, who took you out of the land of Egypt. Why? Liyot lachem le'elohim, to be for you a God. I am your God. Now, what we've done here is put multiple colors here, trying to show the linkage between the different parts. So you'll notice that God is referred to in line 1, it's all purple, line 5, and line twice in line 8. You'll also know the word tzitzit appears 3 times in the yellow color. We have the word kanfei or kanaf, the corner, also appearing twice in line 2 and line 3. In line 5, we had the word uzchartem. You recall or bear in mind, the same word appears in line 7. They're both in bold. The reason vasitim ekol mitzvotai, or to do the mitzvot, is found in line 5 and line 7. At the end of line 7, I've made the letters larger than all the other letters in the paragraph. Vayitim kadoshim le'elokechem, meaning the goal of this is to make you holy to the Lord your God. So our question is, how does it make you holy? What are the means for the holiness? And what role does tzitzit play in this? What role does techelet play in this? And what role does uzkartem, to remember all my mitzvot? So we're going to go through this material systematically. First, by turning to the Gemara and Brachot, page 12, the second paragraph there, which asks the question, Parshat Sisit, mipnei ma kavua. Why do they place the Parsha of Sisit? Which means the word Sisit appears 3 different times, and it got the name Parashat Sisit, which means, according to this, it's called by its key word. Generally, there are 3 ways of describing a Jewish prayer or paragraph. One is by its opening term, one is by its closing term, and the other one is either by its key term or its content. Here, they've taken the word tzitzit to be key. Let's see why. So it begins to say, Amar Rabbi Yehuda bar Chaviva. Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Chaviva, said, this parasha has 5 major elements. What are they? Line 3, mitzvah tzitzit, the mitzvah of tzitzit, Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus, all hamitzvot, the responsibility or the right to do the commandments, dataminim, to counter heresy, hirhor avera, which means thinking about sin, most likely of a sexual nature here, v'hir avodah zarah, and thinking about or being attracted to or contemplating idolatry or the worship of other gods. Then the Gemara continues in line 4, Bishlama hanetlat mafarshan. That makes sense because 3 of them are explicitly mentioned there. What are the 3 explicitly mentioned? Oh mitzvot, with regard to mitzvot dichtiv, ritem oto, you will see it. Uzchartem b'kol mitzvot Adonai. By seeing it, it will stimulate you recalling all the commandments of God, and that will lead to doing them. Tzitzit is also explicit. Tzitzit dichtiv, vasulem tzitzit. They shall make for themselves tzitzit. Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus, is also explicit. Dichtiv, asher otzeti, that I took you out of Egypt. What about the other 2? Ella, dat minim, hirhor avera. Where are they mentioned? Dat minim means heretical beliefs. Hirhor avera means to be led astray. So he says here, hirhor avera zara minalan. Tanya, we learn in a Braita, acharei lavavchem zo minut. To follow your heart, that is what? Minut. Minut is translated here as heresy. V'chein hu omer, because the verse says, Amar naval belibo. Right? Naval means here the unbeliever. Said in his heart, what did he say? Ein Elohim, there is no God. That's heresy. Acharei einechem, after your eyes, the second to the bottom line. Zehir avera, your eyes see and you're attracted. Einayim ra'ot, v'alev chomed, and the heart desires. I mean, people are attracted after their eyes, primarily sexuality. And last, atem zonim, zehir avodah zarah. This is contemplating idolatry, because it says atem zonim is the verb used to follow other gods. So the word zonim has 2 allusions. One is harlotry, and one is the breaking of monogamy. So other gods, right, and other spouses, the same verb is used, zonim, to play the role of whore, which could mean following other gods, or with regard to marriage. So the metaphor of monogamy and monotheism go together, and therefore the break in monotheism is like the break in monogamy. Okay, so that is the Talmud. It says this paragraph is in there because of these 5 elements. The problem with this analysis is it explains the significance of the paragraph, but does not explain its connection with the first 2 paragraphs. Doesn't explain its presence in its present liturgical context, just explains the significance of the paragraph itself. So let's go down to the 3rd part and see if we can find out. Now, I said the motto is of the first paragraph, it's Kedoshim. You should become holy to the Lord your God. So now the question is, what would it mean to become holy? What are the mottos for it? So apparently it's based upon the verse in Exodus 19:6, which says, Atem timyuli mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh. You'll be, we normally translate in English, as a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. So now, holy and priesthood go together. So apparently the point is, if you want to become a holy nation, you have to become a kingdom of priests. Now, what would it mean to become a kingdom of priests? So remarkably, the terminology in the Vayomer paragraph, much of the terminology is taken from the priestly garments as found primarily in the book of Exodus, but also in the book of Leviticus. So let's look at this. In the book of Exodus 28, verses 36 to 37, it says, Vasita tzitz. Vasita tzitz. So the garments of the high priest had 8 tzitz. Now there probably means a crown, probably something on the head, because it was located in the mitznefet. So this was the special hat of the high priest, and then there was a tzitz, which was zahav tahor, pure gold, pitach dalav pituchei chotem, but the last one says v'kodesh l'Adonai. So this tzitz and the special garment on the high priest made the high priest kodesh. Now the word kodesh also means holy, but also means dedicated to, or exclusively the possession of. And then we have tzitz. Now even more remarkable than Exodus 28, the line goes on to say, V'samta oto, the tzitz, al petio techelet. Al petio techelet. So now we have the combination of tzitz and petio techelet, and they are in the headdress of the high priest. Later on in Exodus, it goes on in 39, Vayasu et tzitz, nezer kodesh. So the tzitz becomes part of the holy crown. Vayanu alav, and they put it petio techelet, and on it will be what? It will be hanging probably from a petio techelet. So this is remarkable because it means the priestly garments have a tzitz and a petio techelet. Then the last verse says, Vayasemet mitznefet arosho, Vayasemet mitznefet el mul panav, et tzitz hazahav, nezer akodesh. So even in Leviticus, we have the word tzitz, we have nezer kodesh. So the word tzitz is connected to what? The holy crown. Now let's go back to the opening paragraph with this information and see if we can now make a little more sense of this. Go back to the top paragraph. Okay, now if you have the whole page, the colors of tzitz is the same, and petio techelet. So he says, speaking to the people of Israel, vasu lehem tzitzit. They will make for them what? Tzitzit. Where will they put them? Al kanfei vigdehem. Then it says, v'nanu al tzitzit hakanaf petio techelet. So what does the word tzitzit? So most of us translate, if the first word tzitzit means fringes, then in line 3, it also means fringes. But the phrase petio techelet in Exodus and Leviticus is associated with the word tzitz. And there it means a crown. And they have a blue thread hanging from it. So it could very well be that the word tzitz in the first paragraph does not mean a fringe, but a miniature tzitzit. In other words, if you have tzitzit on your corners of your garment, it should remind you of the tzitzit and the patil techelet of where? Of the crown and the garments of the high priest. So v'hayalachem with tzitzit, and now this will be for you for viewing. Now this translation assumes that the word tzitzit has three different meanings, and it's playing on the illusion of all three, without which we misunderstand it. So in line 2, we're talking fringes, right? But not in line 2, in line 3, tzitzit. Tzitzit is like a miniature tzitz, which means a miniature crown, which is hanging from what? A patil techelet. So now we have the combination of tzitz, patil techelet. This combination only exists in the priestly garments. And then it says, vayalachem with tzitzit. You have to understand, this will be for viewing. You will look at it. You will gaze at it. And by that will remind you. Now, how does it remind you of all the mitzvot? What's the connection? I mean, I can tie a string around my finger, say I'm supposed to remember something, but forget what I'm supposed to remember. But here, we don't do that. Here, I'm tying around the garments, especially the words tzitz and patil techelet. That reminds me of what? The priestly garments. It then reminds me of Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh. Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh has two elements: Kohanim, priests; Mamlechet, kingship. Apparently, the techelet was a special color of garment, extraordinarily expensive, made from a specific dye of snails, which only the rich could afford, a whole garment or a priestly garment of it. The Jew could only afford one thread, but that thread of patil techelet, related to the word tzitzit, reminds him that he belongs to a Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh. What do you mean Mamlechet Kohanim? Every Jew has a bit of his dress like the Kohen to remind him of that. Now let's go down to the third paragraph again. It says the linkage among the sections. The last line, right before that, the line says, okay, Mordechai yatsa milefnei hamelech v'levush malchut techelet. So in the book of Esther, chapter 8, verse 15, when Mordechai arises to become viceroy of Egypt, it says specifically levush malchut, a garment of royalty. And what is the garment of royalty? Techelet. Similarly, in the Roman Empire, when a person became emperor, they say he rose to the purple. Rose to the purple means he had a garment made of extraordinarily expensive dye of the color purple or dark blue. Here, in the Bible, it's associated with the garments of the Kohen and the garments of Mordechai only after he became viceroy. So when you see the techelet, it should remind you of two things: a melech, king, a Kohen, priest, and that the Jew belongs to what? Mamlechet Kohanim. By virtue of belonging to Mamlechet Kohanim, he has more mitzvot than anybody else has. So he has to remember to do all the mitzvot because he belongs to Mamlechet Kohanim. The blue on his corner reminds him of the techelet of the Kohen and the techelet of Mordechai. That is, Kohen, Mordechai together creates what term? Mamlechet Kohanim. The word tzitzit, which is a fringe, reminds him also of the garment of the Kohen Gadol. Therefore, when he looks at them, he remembers and recalls that he belongs to a Mamlechet Kohanim. As belong to a Mamlechet Kohanim, like noblesse oblige, he has more responsibilities than others, and therefore remember to do all the mitzvot. Okay, now, if we go back to the paragraph at the top of the page now. Okay, So now we want to focus upon line 5 we did and line 6. Apparently there are two parts. One is doing the positive and one is avoiding the negative. So the 5, orita moto, is visual. And visual leads to what? Recall. And recall leads to what? Doing. So 5 gives us 3 stages. First, you recall. First, you see. That stimulates recall. Recall stimulates doing. Exactly how the Gemara Menachot takes it. Now, then comes the removal of the negative. Lo taturu acharei lavavchem. Don't follow your lave, which in this case means to be lured after. V'acharei einechem. Emphasis on einechem, your eyes, because 5 is the positive use of the eyes. 6 is avoiding the negative use of the eyes. And what do we do when we follow our lave and our inayim? Zonim acharehem, which the Talmud takes as, right, either be led astray by the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, and led astray by the worship of other gods. Now, if you do both, first you recall, you see, you recall, and you comply by doing all the mitzvot, that's the positive. 2, number 6, you avoid the negative. Then kicks in line 7, Laman tizkeru, again the word zocher, vasitem et kol mitzvotai. And what is the function of doing all mitzvot? Vayitim kadoshim, you become holy to your God. Who is called kadosh? The Kohen. Therefore, you become a priest people by complying with all of God's commandments. When you do this, then you realize that I am the Lord your God. It goes back to the Exodus. Now, what is the Exodus doing here? So the implication of this is that I took you out of Egypt in order, so the holiness of the Jewish people, according to this, becomes the goal of the Exodus. But that line 8, we also know from somewhere else. Where else do we know it from? It turns out that this is the opening of the Aseret HaDibrot, the beginning of the Decalogue. So now go down to the 3rd paragraph. Go down the page, 3rd paragraph. It says the linkage among the 3 sections. Okay? So follow as we show each development. Okay. Now, it says 5, 6, 7, and 8. Those are lines from the Vayomer paragraph. In the dark or the bold lines are lines which are connected to them from other parts of the Shma or parts related to it. So let's look at number 5. It says, Uritem oto, uschartem et kol mitzvot Adonai, vasitem otam. So you'll see, you recall, and do all the mitzvot. Now, what is Uritem oto? Oto means you will see it, but it's masculine. So what could be behind it? So the common explanation, let's go up to the top paragraph again. Most people follow the Midrash that Oto refers to God. How can it refer to God? Because the previous word is tzitzit. And the tzitzit, right? The kanaf is blue. So the blue, according to the Midrash, reminds us of the sea. The sea reflects the glory of heavens, and therefore reminds us of God. The trouble with that is the word oto is masculine. Tzitzit is feminine. So if tzitzit were the antecedent, it would say ota. Therefore, we have to find a masculine term which precedes it. The masculine term which precedes it is petil techelet. Not techelet, but petil, the one thread. So it's looking at that one thread, which reminds us, because it's of its color, reminds us of the limit of the connection between the garments of the priest. We realize that as a priest people, we have more mitzvot than others. Okay, now go back to the bottom of the page again. We have the related. paragraph 3, related verses. Okay, now we go to 6. 6 says, Lo taturu acharei lavavchem, v'acharei nechem, asher tem zonim achareihem. That is related to the second paragraph of the Shema, because the second paragraph of the Shema says, Hishamru lachem pen yifte levavchem. Now, yifte levavchem is a parallel expression, lo taturu. Lo taturu, don't be misled after them. Yifte levavchem means your heart will seduce you. Visartem, and you'll be what? Go the other way. Vavartem elim acharim, and you worship other gods. So this line after 6 exactly follows the Talmudic explanation of the verse, that it's two concerns. First concern is you're misled after your eyes. 2, you'll worship other gods. Then look at line 7. Laman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai, in order that you shall recall and do all the mitzvot. And if you do all the mitzvot, vayitem kadashim lechem, the result is you'll become holy to the Lord your God, just like the Kohanim. And it concludes by saying, Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem eretz Mitzrayim, liot lechem le'elohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem. Where does it come from? So look at 8. It's almost identical to the opening of the Decalogue. The Decalogue says, Anochi Hashem Elokechem, which is almost identical to the first lines of 8. Then it says, Asher hotzeiti etchem eretz Mitzrayim. The Decalogue says, Asher hotzeiticha me'eretz Mitzrayim. Right? And then it says, Beit Avadim. Now, why the Decalogue? So according to the Talmud, Mishnah Tamid, the original liturgy in the temple was preceded by the Decalogue. In other words, in the temple, they didn't read 3 parshiot, they read 4. The first one was the Decalogue, followed by the Shma, followed by Vayam Shemoah, followed by Yomer. Now, one of the ways of constructing liturgy is called chatimatam me'ein petichatam. That means you conclude with the way you began. This is called an inclusio, or an envelope figure, meaning the conclusion recapitulates the beginning and ties it all together. So the Vayomer paragraph probably was added when they still said the Decalogue. That's the report of Mishnah Tamid. The Decalogue begins with Exodus 22. Anochi Adonai Elecha, Asher hotzeiticha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeit avadim. And Vayomer paragraph ends with line 8. The words are almost identical. So therefore, this paragraph was chosen for its multiple elements. Number 1, it concludes the way the Decalogue begins. Therefore, the 4 parshiot are all tied together. Thematically, it repeats themes in the second paragraph of not being led astray. Pen yiftem levavchem v'sartem. So both of them, lo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei nechem, asher tem zonim achareihem. So the commonality of thematics between paragraph 3 and paragraph 2. Even further, it goes on further. So look at the very bottom of this paragraph. It says, Laman yirbu yimechem v'imei v'nechem. This is the last line of the second parasha. And there it says, Laman. The result is that your children's days will multiply on the land, because they will be doing as you did in the first paragraph, they do in the second paragraph. The 3 elements, meaning Talmud Torah, v'yimartem b'nechem. Then we have your children. Then we have the body. And finally, in both paragraphs, we have the home, the mezuzah. So there we argue the 3 basic elements are a person's body, their children, and their home. Those are the 3 elements that most reflect who you are. Your home is not just your quintessential possession. Your home best reflects who you are. Secondly is your children. Third is your body. The second paragraph ties them all to God. The third paragraph, Laman Yevu, ties the garments to God. So look at the very last line of this paragraph. Vayalacha la'ot al yadcha l'zikaron beineinecha. This is the verse which describes the tefillin in the book of Exodus. not in the Shema. There it says, Vayelecha, the tefillin will be la'ot, as a sign on your hand. L'zikaron bein einecha. Look at the word zikaron. The word zikaron means a way of recalling something. The same word is prominent in what paragraph? The third paragraph. Laman tizkeru. So there it's repeated twice. Here, instead of saying totafot for the head tefillin, it says zikaron. And where is it emphasized? Bein einecha. So according to Philo, the tefillin was on the head, but it was on the forehead. So when you looked up, you could always see the tefillin. The argument was out of sight, out of mind. If you want to prevent it from being out of mind, prevent it from being out of sight. So the tefillin would hang from the head, could always be seen. L'zikaron bein einecha. It's between your eyes. The result is you'll recall it. Now, what was the result? Laman, look at the word, same Laman, which appears in the previous line. Tiyeh Torat Hashem beficha. In order that the Torah of God will be in your mouth. Now, most people take this metaphorically, but it may have meant this literally, meaning the Shema is a very long statement of faith. Most religions have like a one-liner or a two-liner. We have 245 words. Who can recall 245 words by heart? That's a major project. So apparently, the Shema was in the tefillin. The original tefillin we know from Qumran were soft, not hard, not as they are now. So the function of this tefillin was initially a portable siddur. You contained the Shema on your head, on your arm. When it came time to read it, you simply did what? Opened it up, took it out, and you read the parchment. The result says, Laman tiyeh Torat Hashem, God's Torah, beficha. I'm taking it literally. It will be in your mouth. You'll be able to recite a very long recitation of 245 words. Not as most religions have a one-liner or a two-liner or something like the Shema, which is only 6 words. Why? Because you can recite it by finding it's on your arm and on your head. Then it adds, Ki biyad chazaka. So I understand why it's on the head and between your eyes to be constantly mindful of it. But why do we emphasize the hand? The hand is also to remind us, Ki biyad chazaka hotziacha Hashem mitzrayim. God took you with an outstretched or a strong arm. Therefore, specifically, our arm is symbolically connected to the divine arm. Having the tefillin on our arm makes us remember that God took us out of Egypt with a strong arm. We have multiple symbolism working here, both verbal and symbolic, and the body almost becomes a metaphor for cleaving to God. Now look at the last paragraph. Go down one more. Remarkable, almost everything I said to you is found already in a 2nd century BCE document, the Metavistaeus, right? This may be written something around the year 150 BCE. It was written in Greek, but it gives us a summary of the Vayomer paragraph and the others all together. This is the earliest evidence we have that all 3 paragraphs of the Shema were already combined. What does the Metavistaeus say? Lines 157 to 160 spells out the correspondence as follows. He, that is Moses, has ordained every time, and every place for continual reminder, zikaron, of the supreme God and upholder of all. Let's see what this reminder is. That's in every time and every place. Furthermore, in our clothes, he has given us a distinguishing mark as a reminder. Now, the word clothes, I put in italics. Why? Go up to the first paragraph at the top of the page. In the same italics, you'll see now the word line 2, second word from the end. Big day hem. It says, Sisit al kanfei big day hem. Now I'll go back to Aristeas at the bottom of the page. We can see how he's recapitulating the actual language of the Bible, 150 BC approximately, and he already understands it as we understand it today. Furthermore, in our clothes, he has given us a distinguishing mark as a reminder, apparently referring to something like Sisit, a special garment. Similarly, on our gates and doors, which is exactly what it says in the Shma, B'sha'arecha, gates and doors. And he has commanded us to set up the words of the Torah, Vayu hadavarim ha'ela asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha. Why? So as to be a reminder of God. The words of Torah, reminder of God. Lamantia Torah Hashem beficha. In order that what? The words of the Torah of God will be in your mouth. And by reciting them, you will take them to heart and internalize them. Now follow closely. He also strictly commands that the sign shall be worn on our hands. On our hands, right? Aliyah. And he also commands that on going to bed and rising. What should people do? Meditate on the ordinances of God. So already in 150 BCE, we have a person summarizing not the first paragraph of the Shema, not the second paragraph of the Shema, but all three, with a special focus upon the first and the last. We have the mention of tefillin. We have the mention of going to bed and rising. We have in every time and every place. We have the focus on what word? Remind, which appears here 3 times. We have emphasis on mezuzot, which is found in both paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 on gates and doors. So here you have this summary, which puts all the 3 together. So part of our thesis is the 3rd paragraph, which does not sound as much like the 2nd paragraph sounds like the 1st, and which is automatically seen how the first 2 are combined, and we showed that in the previous session, but even the 3rd paragraph is linked to it. And it's not only linked to the first 3 paragraphs, but the emphasis on reminding and doing all the commandments as the 2nd paragraph. But the specific is, it also relates to the opening parasha of the service in the temple, because according to Mishnah Tamid, the original service in the temple read 4 parshiot. The first was Aseret Dibrot, the Decalogue. The second was the Shma paragraph, which is our first one. The third was Vayayim Shema, which is our second one. And the last one is Vayomer. And Vayomer, the last line of Vayomer, basically repeats the opening line of the Decalogue, fulfilling the rabbinic principle of liturgical composition, which is Chatimatam Me'ein Petichatam, that their conclusion should recapitulate the beginning and tie the whole thing together. Okay, that's our analysis of the Shema, how it works as liturgy, how words have to be understood in their total biblical context, and how tzitzit and techelet ring and resonate with the garments of the high priest and also of the regular priest, but mostly of the high priest. The function is to remind the Jewish people, Vayitim Kedoshim, you become holy. So if we are to become holy, what is the model for our holiness? The model for our holiness is the Kohanim themselves. The result is not only the Kohanim themselves, but also that of Mordechai, when he becomes viceroy of Egypt. So Mordechai represents Malchut. The Kohanim represent the Kohanim, Kedusha, and therefore we become together a Mamlechet Kohanim, V'goy Kadosh. And what is the means in the 3rd paragraph is the tzitzit, which reminds us on our garments, but reminds us of the garments of the Kohen Gadol, and therefore we are to become a priest people.
Wow, wow. As per usual, I have been flooded with such a beautiful reading and want to ask everyone, what is a question that you might have from this learning, or maybe from hearing about the Shema series as a whole? And the other question that Rabbi Kimelman reminded us of the first time that I love is, what surprised you? What questions might you have and what surprised you? You can type in the chat, or you can raise your little Zoom hand and I'll call on you to unmute and share.
I would like everybody to say what surprise, if any of you found something surprising, and then we can go into questions.
Great.
This way I get some kind of way of measuring what was absorbed and what people found particularly distinctive. So please write down what surprised you, if anything surprised you, and make us aware of it.
These two. That's good. Good to reflect. Reflection helps us remember. Zikaron. Paul is surprised by the emphasis on the priest. Yes, tzitzit as crown, Mariana. I was also, or a tzitz as a crown. I don't know if I've ever heard tzitz as a singular. Right? It's a very surprising source, that last paragraph there. Harkening back to the first session with the different meanings of modecha. Right. Techelet specifically, especially because my tzitzit don't have a techelet. Like, not all of them do. Mine don't, but is it enough to know what's behind that remembrance, even if it's not there? Perhaps. Beautiful reflection, Jennifer. Thank you. Me too, Evelyn. The idea of a little like, boop, scroll, open it, know what it is. Okay, back in the little box, or a satchel, or however we might want to envision it. Very handy, certainly. Ooh, purple thread. So it would be nice to have a crown. Yeah, I loved and was surprised by the democratization of priestliness as just another example of how aspects of the ritual moved from the temple to the home and to the personal. This is one that I hadn't taken to be in that group, which I think is really beautiful. Well, Jennifer asks in her reflection where the tradition of kissing the tzitzit comes from.
This is quite late. The kissing of tzitzit is called derech chiba. That's the phrase used for it, as an expression of affection. It is to be kissed one time. The first thing is tzitzit. But the trouble is, whenever you tell people to kiss one time, most Jews cannot stop kissing. I don't know exactly why. So they kiss all the time. I guess they want the total fringe benefits of the practice. In any case, it's Lashon Chiba, should be done one time when it says tzitzit, because when it says Vayalachem with tzitzit, it doesn't mean it should be for you a tzitzit. It means for gazing. So it's very difficult to gaze at something and kiss at the same time. You have to almost be ambidextrous. Anyhow, so tzitzit. But most of the things, once you introduce as a ritual one time, people end up repeating it all the time. It's like the kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. You're supposed to stand on your tiptoes on the first kadosh, kadosh. Now most people stand for all three responses. Right? So you got to be careful when you introduce a ritual and you try to limit to something, you'll never get there. People just repeat it. It's like there's certain times you stand for Kaddish. Now people want to show their piety, they stand for every Kaddish. They don't know the difference. So when in doubt, stand. So it's very difficult to legislate particulars because people will generalize it and multiply it. So those, by the way, there's no requirement to kiss the tzitzit. It's a late requirement, but it's a sign of affection. And by the way, you can see that I'm enamored the number of people in the last 20, 30 years who have introduced the blue thread back into the tzitzit. Become very common. The Patil Techelet in Israel is extraordinarily common. I mean, I would say, last 25 years. Before that, I don't recall it. And now it's spreading in America also. And it really fits in. If we can do it and we can pull it off, and it's the real thing, then why not do it? Especially when, according to this analysis, the color blue plays a key role in the ideology of the whole paragraph, because the word techelet combines it precisely with Mordechai Melech and the Kohen, and therefore the ideology of Mamlechet Kohanim, without which you would never know what's going on here, unless you appreciate the word Betil Techelet and how it's used elsewhere. Any other specific questions?
Jennifer was asking if the development traditionally of only men doing the mitzvah of tzitzit was biblically determined, or if that changed over time, as opposed to women.
I don't understand the limitation of tzitzit to men. The classical argument is, V'ritem oto, you shall see it. Therefore, it's a mitzvah which is done in daylight. If it's done in daylight, it becomes mitzvah shel zman grama, a time-factored commandment, which they argue, according to the Rabbi, since women have responsibilities to children, they are exempt from. Just because you're exempt from doesn't mean you do not do it. So then this raises the halachic question, are you allowed to say a bracha if you're something you're exempt from? And people can choose to do it. And the fact is, many places, synagogues, not my synagogue, because that's Orthodox, but at synagogues I've seen, the women who wear talit, many of them have blue in it, and they wear it regularly. So if they wear it regularly, they should say a bracha on it. Secondly is that the idea that it's limited to the daytime, baritam oto, now that can be done anytime. And even that, even as mitzvah shel zman grama, all it means is that one is not obligated to do it. And in Judaism, those who fulfill their obligations are even greater than those who volunteer. But there's nothing wrong with volunteering. So if people want to accept upon themselves the mitzvah, people have written on the subject more recently that if people want to accept themselves in the mitzvah, though, they have to take it seriously. Seriously means once you accept it, you got to do it regularly. And if you do as regularly as anybody else, then you should say a bracha. And those argue that once you accept the mitzvah voluntarily, to do it, you're committed to it, you then have to do it regularly. What you cannot do, according to this system, is do it one day and skip a couple of days and come back. So if you do it with regularity, then it's very helpful. And of course, everybody knows how important regularity is.
That's fair. I know plenty that do.
By the way, on this topic, I was in a conservative synagogue recently, and they called women for aliyot. So I said to the rabbi, I said, if a man comes up for an aliyah and doesn't have a talit, you give it to him? He said, of course. Well, then if women come up for an aliyah and don't have a talit, why don't you give it to them? He said, that's an interesting question. I mean, if you're going to call women for aliyot, they don't do it in my synagogue, but if you're going to do it already, and you require the man to wear a talit because he's being called up to the Torah, then why would you not require the woman? And not only that, it solves problems of tzniut, which is a growing problem. So I understand if you're going to call women aliyot and not give them talit, it sounds like a split decision. Doesn't make sense to me. But if somebody else, if it makes sense to them, then please speak up. Any other comments, questions, or reflections?
Comments, questions, reflections? And then just want to share a couple more words before we close. No apologies necessary. I've been thinking about, my father had a tradition that he never taught me, but I just observed him doing, going back to something I keep thinking about from our study of Ve'ahavta, which is at Ori Temoto, he would lift up his tzitzit and look at them actively, as opposed to just kissing. And that's something that I started doing that now connects me back to him and has me physically doing the action it's saying in the tefillah. I don't have techelet, but now I kind of want to get some potentially non-snail based techelet, if possible.
Anyhow, the phrase "vayelech with tzitzit" may be translated, and it should be for you for gazing. The word tzitzit, latzitz, means to peek, to look at. So vayelech with tzitzit, if you translate, it will be for you for tzitzis, as most people translate. It just repeats the previous line. So it's very likely vayelech with tzitzit. And by the way, it would reinforce that the word tzitzit is polyvalent, has three meanings at least. One is, of course, tzitzit, a fringe. The other is a miniature priestly crown to remind you of it. And the third is, vayalach tzitzit is for you for gazing, which means you should look at it. So more important than kissing it, which is an extra expression of affection, is the fulfillment of the actual verse, which means what? To look at it. Now, what are you going to look at it? Specifically, look at the blue thread. And you're to be reminded of the blue of the techelet in that of the king, and even more important, that of the Kohen. Even more important, the Kohen Gadol, where it's mostly found. And therefore, you remember that you are Mamlechet Kohanim, and realize what he's supposed to do as a member of Mamlechet Kohanim, to do all the mitzvot. And the result will be what? Vayitim kadoshim lelokeichem. So the paragraph now makes perfect sense. That is why we emphasize holiness. What's the holiness have to do with tzitzit and petil techelet? And kadoshim is back to mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh. So once you understand the illusions of the terms, it's amazing how much of this paragraph is coherent, makes sense, and fits in with the first two paragraphs of the Shema as a 3-paragraph unit.
Thank you. I'm so grateful kind of as we wrap up with our last few minutes. This has certainly been very meaningful for me, and I hope for all of us. We can take what we've learned in these sessions, and if you registered and we have your email, we will send you later today or tomorrow recordings of the 3 different sessions and the PDFs of the 3 different sessions, so you can have and go back or watch them if you were unable to. That I hope this doesn't just affect our prayer life. You know, when I come across the Shema in the Siddur now, I'm certainly going to have a different relationship with it and response to it. But I also hope that it's able to come out into our regular lives, that what we have been learning about what it means to teach, what it means to love, what it means to give of ourselves, what it means to see, what it means to do these mitzvot, that it can have an impact in our lived lives as well. Nathan is now going to drop a couple of links in the chat, yes, that we're also going to send later. One is a feedback form. This is the first session of this type that we've done through the Light Lab. Our mission is to make Jewish liturgy and prayer practice accessible and meaningful for all seekers. And we believe that this caliber of learning is really a part of that. And we're hoping to do more. So we'd love to hear what more you might be interested in, how you heard about the class, and anything else you would like us to know. So that's the forum. There's another link Nathan's going to put in the chat if you would like to donate or contribute to the Light Lab for these types of classes to keep happening. We like that we're able to open up to everybody who wants to join. So it's certainly not necessary. Oh, is the feedback form doing the weird thing where it's being weird? Hold on. I will fix it in a minute. Because it really likes to default. Yeah. We're not going to restrict the using. We want everybody to be able to have it. So let's try this again. This is good. This is why we're testing it. Give that a go. Let's see. Yes. Thank you, everybody, for your feedback on this feedback form. It is working. Hooray. Once again, big round of Zoom applause. Clap, 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 clap for Rabbi Kimelman. Thank you so much for bringing your learning, making it accessible, making it fun and meaningful and interesting. And can't wait to learn with you again very soon.
Okay, shalom, shalom. Glad to have all you people participating. It's wonderful.
Shalom, shalom.
Let's all learn Torah together.
Amen. Okay, stopping the share on Facebook. Very, just so great. You can unmute and say goodbye. Oh, you couldn't do that. Now you can. Someone should have told me they couldn't unmute. Oh no. That's now you can. Thank you.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very delightful.
Extremely interesting.
Oh,
and
Evelyn, I forgot to say. Yes, there is a session tomorrow. It'll be in the email, diving into this stuff, kind of on a more spiritual level. Yes, Jennifer, continue. Sorry.
oh, just to say also, each lecture was just very, very insightful, thrilling, I find it. But also, you just provided a real blueprint for how to approach liturgy in general, so that we can take text. We need your guidance. I mean, it's really, I hope you teach us so much when you have time, that we can now on our own try to make connections as well. It's really a launching pad. To
Thank you.
say
That's really
nothing of
true.
how much it enriches our prayer. So
That's a great expression, launching pad.
Agreed. Putting that down. Jennifer, I might contact you. I
okay,
put this into a little testimonial for this class.
happy to.
It's just an absolute dream. Happy to provide a platform for your teaching and scholarship. So thank you, everybody. More to come. Have a beautiful rest of your Wednesday. And it's Wednesday, so we can say Shabbat Shalom. So Shabbat Shalom to everyone. We'll see you
Bye-bye.
soon.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.